right, let's call this regular council meeting of Wednesday, March 20th to order. It is 7 p.m. We have an amended agenda. Are there any additional errors? Okay. Any potential conflicts? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. 10.4, when we get to the community investment program, I'm going to step out because the SDBA applied for one and I'm with them. So.
Okay. And I'm going to look to the corporate officer and the CAO on this. I know Councillor Rowe is also going to declare a conflict for that, but she's the chair. Could we have her stay for a discussion and then have her leave? So if we have questions about what happened at the committee,
just separate it.
And then have them leave.
Well, I recused myself from 3 decisions within the decision-making process with Minor Hockey Skate Club and Community Resource Center, because I have long-standing ties with them. Yeah. So happy to stay for questions about if there's anything around the committee, and then leave for the vote.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I'd add then is, and that's the way the item's set up, is that council should vote then on each one separately. Then Councillor Rowe can be there and just recuse herself for the ones that she has a conflict with if you vote on each decision separately.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll pull those out. So you said skate club, hockey?
And Community Resource Center.
Okay. SDBA? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll make that happen. All right, so then a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we have a delegation. Steve Drinkwater, please come down. So you push the button on the mic and then just make sure it's down like towards your mouth. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And can you hear in the back? Have we got it turned? Yes. Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay. I usually don't have a problem making myself heard, but hopefully in a positive way. My name is Steve Drinkwater, and I'm here representing the Elphinstone Aero Club, where I serve as treasurer. I'm also an aircraft owner and pilot at the airport. But before you get any ideas or misconceived notions about what that means, my plane costs less than the secondhand Dodge truck I just bought last summer. And it also costs less to insure. So don't think that we're any sort of super elite. That's not the case. I was able to see a little bit of what Ben put in the presentation. I wasn't aware until just recently that he was going to give you a little bit more of a background of the Elphinstone Aero Club, so I don't have to provide you with a whole lot of things. But as you know, it was founded in 1957 by a group of volunteers who assembled the land and cleared it. Again, volunteer labors with equipment, volunteer equipment. And presto, Sunshine Coast had an airport. And as things went along and efforts were made to improve the airport, funding from senior levels of government was sought and was obtained. However, the condition of receiving those funds was that it be a government that received them and not a not-for-profit society, which Elphinstone Aero Club was and still is. So the airport was essentially turned over to the town of Gibsons and Sechelt in order to receive that funding. And one thing that's interesting, the federal government was interested in providing money for paving 4,000-foot runway, which would have been a real nice thing for us. However, Gibsons and Sechelt at that time did not have the matching funds available, so we were stuck with the 2,400, but we're still happy with it at this time. The things what I wanted to impress upon everyone here is the volunteer nature of not only the founding of that airport, but the maintenance through all these years, which has now gone on 60 years. And through that volunteerism, it has kept the operating costs of the airport to a very, very minimum and not being a burden on the taxpayers. As an example, I can give you the issue of the runway lights. when we wanted to have runway lights to allow aircraft to land at night, there was no budget for it. But through connections and networking, we discovered that runway lights from the Nanaimo airport were available. They had upgraded to a new system, so their old system was surplus. So for the great cost of $1, they were brought over to Seashelt, and again, through volunteers from the Elphinstone Aero Club, they were installed, and that's why we have lights at nighttime at the Seashelt Airport. And that's why the air ambulance, when it cannot land at the hospital landing pad due to bad weather, is able to land at nighttime at Seashelt Airport because we have night lights. Again, thanks to the volunteerism of Elphinstone Aero Club. It goes on to, there are many, many examples, and I don't want to bore you with them, but just a short walk from here, at the other end of this building are the civic archives where I discovered much of this information. It's all there. And you can see the letters, correspondence with the different government ministers and ministers who have come here to the coast and helped celebrate with the mayor at the time and celebrating the opening or the different phases of the airport. So there's a great history. And like I say, it's just down the hallway here. Right now, we provide at the airport, the services that we're volunteering right now are grass cutting, which is a very labor-intensive activity and costly when you have to contract it out. Again, our volunteers are doing that. And other examples are we're putting in at our own expense a weather cam that'll allow pilots to be able to log in and have a visual image of the airport for safety reasons. These are sort of things that we're doing on an ongoing basis. What you're being presented with here tonight is to approve a new ongoing lease for the clubhouse building. Let me make it clear right now that the clubhouse building is used mainly as a terminal. We have a monthly meeting in it, and a barbecue, and we might have a board meeting, but it's put out also for the flying community, and not just the flying community to use as a rest area between, for example, the air ambulance crews when they're there transferring patients and they have to wait, they have a place to wait that's warm, and we have restroom facilities. But we also make it available to the air cadets who use it for training and also for their other meetings. And so it's a community facility for aviation-related events. The lease that is before you is to continue with a 20-year lease and also in exchange for making it available as a terminal, and we're happy with that. But what we're not happy is the fact that there is a tie-down, what we call a tie-down spot or a parking spot for an additional aircraft right adjacent to our clubhouse. Until recently, we had 2 aircraft that those who choose not to buy an aircraft can use as a club aircraft instead. And at the moment, we haven't replaced that aircraft, but we still want to keep that tie-down spot or a parking spot as a club asset. I don't know how many of you have been out to the airport, but there are many other areas right in front of our clubhouse that were part of our area before. I don't know the legal lease that it was under at the time, but we managed it and we improved those spots by putting down cables where the aircraft can be tied down, et cetera, and there's wiring, electrical wiring going to some of those spots. Again, the improvements were made by the Elphinstone Aero Club. And so then the recommendation for this is that that tie-down spot be made perhaps available to us, but what we want is the lease, the boundaries of that lease drawn to definitely include that spot. We're seeing over the years losing our assets bit by bit by bit. And so we just want that to stop. We want to keep onto that last remaining parking spot next to us. And so you can understand that with all the volunteerism we put into this airport, having having the district chip away at the assets we do have is kind of like a kick in the teeth. And so I'm here just to ask you to reconsider or consider including that spot by having the boundaries, the land boundaries redrawn. I'm only talking about maybe a 20 by 30 foot square piece of land. And that's basically all we're asking for. And at the same time, I want to take advantage of my being here in front of you now to welcome each and one of you up to our airport. Contact any one of us and we'll be glad to show you around. I know one or two of you know the airport, one very well, another one not so well, but has been up there. And so we welcome you. We also look forward to working with this council in the future to make our airport an even greater asset for everyone on the Sunshine Coast. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you have any questions. I'm glad to take them.
All right, any questions? Councilor McLean?
So later in the agenda, it proposes a 20-year lease.
Yes?
I was wondering, the previous lease was 10 years. So that is a change. So I'm wondering, how would the 20-year lease help you above what a 10-year lease could do?
The last year was 10 years plus 5 plus 5. We're asking for 20 plus 5 plus 5, actually. And the reason is the roof is coming up for maintenance. It actually needs replacement. If a 10-year lease, we're not willing to make that kind of investment. If we would like to properly, replace the roof properly. Other improvements we want to make to the building as well, and we're serious about doing this, but we're not really we don't feel that we can do it on a 10-year lease only.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Do you guys have a capital plan to replace the 150 that you sold?
Do we have a capital plan to replace the reef?
Well, yeah.
We have the funding, yes.
Oh, to replace the airplane?
No, we can replace an airplane, but we're choosing first to improve the airplane that we do have, and also spending on the building to keep us going for another 2 or 3 decades at least.
Okay, so when would you anticipate needing the second spot?
We don't need it right now for a second aircraft, but we like it to have it for transient visitors, or perhaps if they're perhaps renting it out ourselves. And you're wondering why would we want that revenue? Well, I'll give you an example of one thing that used to be covered by volunteers, and that was cleaning of the terminal building. It used to be done by volunteers, and these days it's getting more difficult to find volunteers to do that. So we're paying a service to do that.
Okay.
And so we don't feel that we should have to add that on to the cost of flying to the aircraft for the cleaning of the terminal building.
Fair enough. Thanks.
So you indicated that the space has been getting smaller. I looked at the 2 contracts that are in here, the current one that's being proposed and the previous one, and it's got the same area indicated on both.
Yes, and that's, again, it was very, very loosely applied, those contracts in the past. As a matter of fact, it kind of expired and nobody noticed. And, excuse me. But we had an aircraft there, and it was just accepted that that was our tie-down spot, and no issue was raised. And so I don't know what, and also the surveys were not very accurate. When we tried to get one and apply it to what's out there right now, the lines just didn't line up anyway. I think it needs resurveying, and should it be resurveyed, we want that piece included.
So if it's on our agenda today, if we pass this today, then it's exactly as presented. So what you're requesting is that we not move this forward today?
We can move it forward. We've been here, now we're going into 3rd year on a sort of a month-to-month basis. We're willing to wait until we get the lease just right.
Okay. So we'll see what happens when it comes up here. Another question for you. You say it's being used as a terminal. So I'm not, as you know, I'm not one of you. I don't fly in there. How do people coming in actually get access to that?
The doors are unlocked.
Okay, and then they get a code for the gate to come in and out? Is that what?
No, we don't allow people in from the general public, but the
Right.
flying public who come in on an aircraft,
Right.
they're airside.
Right, but then they may want to go somewhere.
When they go out of public gates, there's a code that they are to look at that's only visible to the people airside
Okay.
that they're supposed to remember so that they can get back into the,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, sounds good. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for your time, Steve.
Well, thank you very much for receiving me.
So we'll move on to item 5.1, minutes of the 3 PM regular council meeting of February 27th, and I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then item 5.2, this is the regular council meeting of Wednesday, March 6th. First, we'll do a motion to receive. Moved and seconded, all in favor of receipt? Any errors or omissions in this one? I had one question. On 3.1, Mr. Kopiski, is that his name? He's indicating he wants a kiosk at Friendship Park. I understood he was looking at Acacia Park, or is he looking at both?
Madam Mayor, I believe he originally was going to be at Acacia Park, but he withdrew that and.
And he's going to
basically wants
Friendship,
go to
okay.
Friendship Park only.
Okay, any other questions, errors, or omissions? Okay, so I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Item 5.3, minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, March 13th. Again, a short one. This was just going into closed meeting. So motion to adopt, moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Then we've got the minutes of the parcel tax roll review panel. Look for a motion to adopt, moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. Good job, Councillor Toth. And then the Committee of the Whole, Wednesday, March 13th. Motion to adopt. Moved, seconded. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. So we're moving into bylaws. So item 8.1A, this is for Lawn and Webb rezoning application 5664 Nickerson Road, West Seashelt neighborhood. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor of receipt? Thank you, and we'll turn to staff.
Thank you. So this application is a fairly straightforward rezoning application. The property owners were originally looking to subdivide and were unable to do so. So they were looking to rezone the property to allow the construction of a guest cottage in addition to the existing single-family dwelling on the property. And that's basically what this bylaw is going to allow. The guest cottage would be about 55 square meters based on the zoning. And the only thing that we're looking at doing as a condition of the zoning is to require that it be made adaptable. So according to the BC Building Code standards, to allow for accessibility, basically focusing on wider doorways, accessible bathrooms, and sort of outlets and switches and things at accessible heights, so according to the building code. Other than that, the bylaws presented for first reading, and we'd be looking to schedule the public hearing, which could likely happen probably in conjunction with another rezoning application that we've looked at previously for Bly Road. They could probably happen on the same date, whenever we schedule that.
Thank you. Any questions? I had one question. With the accessibility, like you're looking to have it be accessible or built adaptable standard, right? Where does that show up in the process? It isn't in the bylaw here.
No, it's not in the bylaw. It would be in a covenant that would go on title.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So we have two of the motions presented to us. a motion that that it be given first reading and that we authorize staff to do a public hearing. Moved. And look for seconder. All in favor? Thank you. So let's move to item 8.1B on page 35. This is bylaw number 25-297-219 for Lawn and Webb for Nickerson Road, a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25-1987. And who would like to move first reading? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you to staff on that one. Then we'll move to item 8.2A. This is the Housing Agreement Bylaw 576-2018 for Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society, Green Court, 5583 Ocean Avenue. And I see Dev in the audience. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As mentioned, this is the housing agreement for Green Court, bylaw 576-2018, for 3 readings. So the purpose of this agreement, it runs with it's a condition of the OCP amendment and the zoning amendment to give effect to the Green Court project. This is a 5-story development, 104 affordable units. The agreement is done to secure the commitment to the affordable housing. As shown in the agreement, there are 3 affordability levels associated with this project, 20% at deep subsidy, 50% at rent geared to income, and 30% moderate affordable market rent. So happy to take any questions, and that concludes. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor McLean.
So a question on DCCs. If this is not the time to discuss DCCs, but I'm just wondering, there seems to be 2 options presented, waiving all of the DCCs and waiving the DCCs for only the affordable and not the market rate rentals. So I'm wondering if I can get clarity on that, and let's just stick to that for now.
Through the chair, in most cases where it's under a housing agreement and under nonprofit, according to our DCC bylaw, we can waive all of it. The request was put in there because technically some is at affordable, and just want to make sure that we can, in fact, do that.
So clarification, so legally we can do that?
We can.
Okay.
It's up to the director. You can waive 100% and this does apply on that because it is nonprofit and under a housing agreement. We don't actually determine within the DCC bylaw the definition of affordability. So I just wanted to clarify with council if there were any concerns around that, if we just waive the 100%.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor McLean.
Similar question on servicing to the site. It's proposed that servicing improvements are going to be covered by general revenue. Will those be included in our budget discussions?
Through the chair, it would really depend on the timing of when that needed to happen, whether it went into this year's budget or when it went into a future one. That was a discussion that took place prior to the zoning going through.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we have a recommendation, number 2, that we give first, second, and third reading to this housing agreement. Someone like to move that forward? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So let's move to page 42. Item 8.2B, this is a housing agreement bylaw 576-2018, Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society, Green Court, a bylaw to authorize the District of Sechelt to enter into a housing agreement with the Sunshine Coast Lions Housing Society pursuant to Section 483 of the Local Government Act. And we'll look for 3 readings of this. So, first reading, moved and seconded, all in favor? And we'll do second reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? And any questions before we move forward to third reading? All right. Look for a third reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Then with regards to the DCCs, do you need us to put anything forward on that, or are we assuming it's going to be 100%?
I would need a motion if it was anything but that.
Okay. Is council looking at doing anything different? No motion, let's move to the next item. So on page 54, with regards to our sign amendment bylaw. So, sign amendment bylaw 456-3, 2019, and this is for adoption. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And this came before us before. This was changing so we could have the luminous house numbering signs as put forward by the Rotary Club. Any questions by council? So a motion that this sign bylaw be adopted is the recommendation. Moved and seconded. All in favor? So let's move to the bylaw on page 56, item 8.3B. Sign amendment bylaw number 456-3, 2019, a bylaw to amend the District of Sechelt sign bylaw number 456, 2006. And I'd look for someone to move adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. So item 10.1, 2019 library funding. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn to Dr. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on February 6th, Council did pass a motion to in support the library's funding request. It was subject to the other funders also supporting the same level of funding. As it turned out, the SCRD reduced the funding allocation that they are willing to provide. So as a result, it really has come back to council to reconfirm something, being as the previous motion was subject to obviously other events occurring that did not occur. So I'm bringing that forward to you now. So with the reduced funding from the library, if Sechelt was to keep its, from the loose funding for the SCRD, if the Sechelt was to keep its funding the same, its prorated allocation would rise from 63.1% to 65.02%. So our share of the total funding would increase if we keep it the same. So the option really, and it would also leave the library with a $25,000 deficit based on the SCRD's reduced funding. If the district wanted to keep its proportional share the same, it would reduce our funding, but it would leave the library with about a $72,000 deficit. So at this point, what I'm recommending is that we keep the funding the same as what you previously approved. It's in the budget, it's been accounted for now. It would increase the share for this year to 65% of the total share. It would require the library to find out how they could reallocate the $25,000, which is why there's a further recommendation in there that we put no restrictions on the money. So that would allow them to buy capital, hire people, do whatever they needed to do to make it work, knowing some of the restrictions on the SCRD money. And finally, we still have to go into a negotiation for a long-term contract, so we don't necessarily have to stick with this funding model going into the future years. Thank you.
Right, any questions, comments? Councillor Scott.
Actually, more just for our SCRD reps. How come?
Okay, at the regional district, the director for Roberts Creek, he funds the reading room in Roberts Creek. He also provides 50% funding to the town of Gibsons for the library and 50% funding to the District of Sechelt. So the Gibsons Library did not ask for the same increase this year as the District of Sechelt. So he kept his proportion to the Sechelt Library the same as what he gave to Gibsons. And that's all open, as you know, Mr. Stewart said, that's all open for negotiation once we look at the contract. But for this year, his portion then is $23,000 less. Area A, so Egmont, Pender Harbor, Half Moon Bay, both funded to the same level in the agreement that they have in previous years. So because of the reduction in Roberts Creek, our proportion has gone up. This would still be the same amount we would have funded if Roberts Creek had funded the full amount as well. Any other questions, comments? So we have some motions in front of us. What would you like to do? Councillor Toth.
I'll move recommendations 2 and 3.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I just really want to thank staff for including the no restrictions. I believe that's going to make a large difference for how the library could operate. And I encourage the SRD reps to consider that moving forward in the long-term funding agreement as well.
That'll be something that'll have to be looked at inside of the funding agreement as well. Currently, their bylaws that they have set up for funding do not allow capital expenditures beyond $5,000. So if we're looking at replacing computers, replacing furniture, which is what the library is actually looking at now, they can't actually use the funding given by the regional district to do that. So this second recommendation actually allows them to be able to do what they need to do. Thank you. All right, any other comments? All those in favor? Thank you. So now we come to the Elphinstone Aero Club land lease, page 60. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. And Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Mr. Drinkwater certainly gave a good explanation of well, what this report's about, what they're seeking and what we're recommending. So yes, it is a new 20-year lease with the Elphinstone Flying Club and with the renewal option. I guess really just to address the one area that was of contention had to do with this tie-down area. When we heard about it, our main concern primarily was that they would use this space as a revenue generation, really in competition with the district. We are in the business of renting space, hangars, et cetera. So we did, at this point, didn't feel it was appropriate to provide the Elphinstone Club with a revenue opportunity, and that we would be foregoing our opportunity, particularly consideration that we do give them use of the land and the building at no charge. We'd be waiving all fees as well. In fact, we pay the taxes as well on the property. So really that was where it came down to. We felt the idea would be that should they acquire a second airplane and require the tie down, we would certainly provide it then, but to include it in the lease now would give them an opportunity to lease it out, rent it out, and keep the money themselves. So really that was our reasoning behind that. Otherwise, it's the same standard lease as they've had for a long time.
So just a question then, so that they have one tie down right now and that's included in the area that's on the lease?
That's my understanding, and they have an airplane that would use that tie down. The probably point is a second tie down, and our understanding is they don't need a second tie down at the moment.
Yeah.
So they would be using it as a revenue opportunity.
Councillor Scott?
How did it work when they had a second airplane? Did they pay the district for that spot? Or was it just used?
It was just used. And that would be an understanding here. If they were to acquire a second airplane, we would do an amendment to the lease, providing them free use of the spot, but not the opportunity to rent it out to others.
Any questions? Councillor McLean?
Do we have any idea of how much revenue either us or the Aero Club could generate from this spot?
I'm sorry, I don't.
$300 a year.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor McLean?
So aside from this issue of the extra tie-down spot, I also saw an issue with the surveying of the lease area. From what I understand is that it was not strictly enforced in the past. So I think it would be prudent for us to develop a more accurate survey of the space that they're using so we can make that accurate and reflective of what we intend instead of having this loosey-goosey kind of lease.
would you like to propose then?
I would like to move that we refer this back to staff, asking for a more accurate survey of the lease area.
And did you want that lease area to also include the tie downs? Because that seems to be the contentious component of this.
Yes. Separate those motions, I think.
Okay, so we have a motion made. Is there a seconder to refer this back to staff to resurvey the area? Okay, go ahead.
I don't think the lease area is all that out of whack. It just doesn't include that second spot. Do you guys, as far as I understand, it's fairly accurate. They may just use more than they have lease area.
Okay, could you comment on that?
Not really. We haven't had the lot officially surveyed. It's just been our own internal staff. I mean, my assumption was it was fine. It's only tonight I'm hearing that perhaps it's not. So I'm not aware that this area, as mapped out, is a problem.
I would suggest then that we defer that to the airport committee, because I think that's going to be all part of the structure of that.
Okay.
Just to have a look at all the leases in the area, see where it sits.
Can you second that?
Okay, so we had Councillor McLean made a motion. There was no seconder for that motion. Okay, so that died. Councillor McLean, Councillor Scott.
Okay, I just move that we just defer the lease boundary review to the airport committee when it's formed.
Okay, and the terms of reference are in process right now. That should be fairly soon.
I will second that.
Okay, seconder. Any other comments? Councillor.
Councillor Scott, you said it was $300 a year would be the income from that?
That's what I pay.
Okay, so.
To the district.
Yeah, so if the Aero Club, how would we ever monitor who is using the space? You know, so are we gonna pay somebody to go up there and check every day to see if the space is being used, or is it an honor system, or the club could lease it out and we would never know that they were leasing it out, so.
I get a notice from Great Capel when my rent's coming due. So there is an honor system up there for daily parking. Or you can do it on a monthly or a yearly. So it is a bit of an honor system that's managed through Greg.
I think the intention of this motion that's on the floor, though, is to refer it to the airport committee that is being formed, to have them look at the space and come back with potential recommendations after looking at all of the area up there.
I understand that's all part of the terms of reference of the committee. So.
Okay. Councillor McLean.
And if they could also review this issue of the second parking spot, having it operated via the Aero Club or being operated through the District of Sechelt. I think that would be of value to us, because I'm dealing with a huge lack of information here on day-to-day airport operations, and I think that's a great use of the committee who actually know the airport in depth.
Okay, any other comments? So we have a motion on the floor that's referred to the Airport Advisory Committee that is in process of being formed. All those in favor? Thank you. So we move on to 10.3. Coasters Car Club. Letter of agreement. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And we turn this to the corporate officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is for Council's consideration of renewing the letter of agreement that the district has entered into with Coasters Car Club. The district first entered into the agreement in 2013 for a 5-year term, and the agreement authorizes the club to use Hackett Park and all of Cowrie Street for its annual Sleepy Hollow Rod Run and Show and Shine. The event occurs on the weekend after the BC Day long weekend. The current agreement comes with an option to renew for a further 3-year term, subject to the club requesting that happen. They have forwarded me that request, so this is in front of council for consideration of renewing the agreement for an additional 3 years. The draft, the proposed agreement that's in front of you is contains all the same terms and references as the previous one, except the term has obviously been changed to 2019 to 2021, and the section that allowed for the 3-year renewal has been deleted. Other than that, it's the same terms. Thank you. That's my
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Thank you.
So Car Show Day is one of the best days of the year, but it's one of the worst traffic days of the year in Sechelt. The traffic impact on our whole community is quite severe. And I'd really like to see us think critically about how we can reduce this traffic impact on a whole community without impacting the event. My brief idea is to open Trail Avenue, allow cars to flow through that and have the event operate on both sides of Trail on Cowie. But I'm not a traffic engineer, and we have more expertise in the District of Sechelt. So I'd like to refer this back to staff with options for improving traffic flow through downtown Sechelt during Car Show days.
I'm wondering if that could be a conversation had with the Coasters Car Club.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I don't know if that necessarily needs to go to staff at this point, but how would you want to see us handle this?
I didn't understand what he meant. Move car at the Coasters Car Club? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand what Councillor McLean meant. Did you mean move the cars
No,
up
if you look at the map on
Yeah.
page, sorry, it's on page
Yes.
96, yes. So what he's proposing is that instead of having Trail closed off at Cowie on both sides there, that traffic still be allowed to move through. Councillor McLean.
It's a proposal. I'd like staff in collaboration with the Coasters Car Club to evaluate that and other proposals to ease traffic flow through Sechelt.
Got it.
Then we'd have to have flaggers and things there as well. I think what is the timing that they need in order to do their advertising and stuff for this event?
The sooner the better, but, another council meeting or so, they need to start arranging their permitting with Ministry of Transportation and Highways in time for August, but this is off the top of my head, but I'm sure we're okay for another couple of council meetings before it comes forward again.
I'm wondering if there's a way to revise the recommendation number 2 and move it back, move it forward so it doesn't actually have to come back, but that staff can then work with them. Even if it's something like recognizing traffic concerns and looking for ways to mitigate them. Yeah. Would you like to? Yes, that sounds good. Have staff work with the Coasters Car Club.
And engineering, and our engineering department to look at solutions for traffic control.
If you had that as number 3, then it wouldn't need to come back. We'll just do that. So you're just directing staff to work with them.
Councillor McLean?
I like the principle of that. I don't like signing an agreement that we don't intend to enforce. So if we come up with an alternative form of traffic management, that should be in the agreement that we sign, rather than sign the agreement and then change it.
Can I just, one of the conditions of the agreement is that the Coasters Car Club will provide a traffic management plan to the district, RCMP, and MODI. So we do already play somewhat of a role. Actually, our Director of Engineering and Operations works with them on that. So we could take that direction, add it on to the existing recommendation, and that would provide that direction to staff.
Right, so it's already in the contract.
Contract section B small 4 says that that they will provide a traffic management plan.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Oh, Lord, okay. I just don't want to get staff to do something that Councillor McLean feels this way. I absolutely don't feel this way, I have to say. I'm sorry, Councillor McLean. But it's one day a year. This is such a flagship event that I just can't believe that we can't cope for a day. I would be worried about no matter how many flaggers you have, there's 2,000 people down there during the day, even having one of those intersections open to me. Sounds like sirens in my nurse's head. So I just wonder if, I wonder about having staff do work that just me personally, I don't necessarily see a need for. I'm just wondering how everyone else on council feels before we move something forward.
Councillor Scott?
100% agree with Councillor Rowe on this. It's one day. It's such a great event. It's going to be a snarl to try to make a flag through there with all the people crossing. I just let them go with for the one day. It's awesome.
Okay, so Councillor Kuster.
I agree 100%. It's not even a full day. It's like 5 hours, 6 hours. And it just brings our community together. It brings people to the downtown. And if people can't cope for 5 or 6 hours, it's too bad. It's just such a great event.
Councillor McLean.
I don't think opening Trail Avenue, for example, would harm the event. I recognize the potential safety issue that Councillor Rowe brings. I think it can be mitigated. I'm trying to plan the best event for Sechelt overall. I don't think it'd impact the quality of the event, and it would allow Sechelt to continue moving around the event in a better way. So just trying to find the best solution for everyone.
Okay, so process. Where are we with regards to motions, et cetera?
So you've received, recommendation 1 has been carried, and there's nothing else on the floor at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. It's just more a question, I guess, for staff or maybe the Coasters Car Club through the chair. Do we know if the fire department has provided any feedback about that intersection or concerns?
It's all part of the traffic management plan. We do require that they check with emergency services is aware of the event as well, and there have never been any issues that I'm aware of come forward over the years from an emergency management perspective.
I'm happy.
Councillor Toth, okay. Councillor McLean.
So I am aware of an issue. The fire truck essentially got stuck in traffic, I believe 2 years ago. Cars were unable to get out of the way. And I know the Coasters Car Club is aware of that issue, and they've done their best to improve that situation last year. But there was an incident where fire truck was stuck in traffic. Thankfully, there was a false alarm, but they couldn't get out of Sechelt.
So that needs to be managed inside of the traffic management plan.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have no motion on the floor. Councillor Toth.
I'll move recommendation 2 as it is.
Is there a seconder for the motion on Councillor Scott? Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? And would you like that recorded? Sure. Thank you. So we'll move to 10.4. So first thing I want to look at is which ones do we need to pull back on? 2.14 for Toth. And yes?
I got it outlined here.
Okay.
2.14, 2.19, 2.23, and 2.26.
So 19, 2.3, and 2.6?
So perhaps we could receive the report, and then I'll move everything except those 4.
Well, I have some questions about some of them, and some of the others may have questions as well.
Sorry. I just realized I forgot my plan.
They won't be hard questions. Okay, does anybody else have questions first? On any of these? Okay, we'll move to receive the report first, thank you. Moved and seconded, all in favor of receipt, thank you. Okay, so I have a question about the Metro Vancouver Crime Stoppers. So there used to be a Crime Stoppers group up here, and there isn't anymore. So we're looking to give $1,500 to the Metro Vancouver Crime Stoppers. Are they actually going to be on the coast, or is this?
There is somebody here.
Okay, can you use your microphone, please? Thank you.
The program does have a local delivery mechanism, like there is somebody in this community. We did stipulate that the money be used for the education component, because our terms of reference actually say that we can't use grant money to give awards or rewards. So that was the stipulation with that one.
Okay, and then if you go to page 116, there's recommendation 29. I wasn't clear about what the committee was asking for in that.
What page are you
Page
on?
116. It says that council expand the grant evaluation criteria as outlined in 2.5.4 Community Investment Program Policy to include 6.10 actually, the ratio of grant request to overall organizational budget.
So there's the occasional organization, let's say their whole operating budget is $10,000 and they're asking us for $5,000.
Yeah.
If we are unable to fund that, they're at risk of not being able to run their organization, as opposed to asking for grant money to serve a specific program.
Right.
So we had a couple of those situations come up, and our suggestion is that they should not be asking for more than 25% of their whole operating budget. Does that make sense?
Yes. So is the committee looking to come forward with some recommendation of a specific to council to change the policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often. Most people are looking for actual project, but in smaller organizations, it actually, you know, if their organization is for the purposes of putting on one event,
yes,
right? It can be quite a chunk of money that they're asking for in relation to the total budget. Would you, Mr. Stewart was there, did I say that right?
Yes, I would think so. I think, I'm not sure we would necessarily propose a specific ratio, because as Councilor Rose said, it really varies from organization to organization. Some, we may be concerned that all of their operating budgets funded from the district, therefore if the district ceased to fund it, they would cease to exist. But some of the smaller ones, if it's just a small amount, we're okay with that. So I think it's really meant to be a criteria that the committee would consider as part of its evaluation, not necessarily with guidelines, but just something they would keep in mind as a factor to weigh.
So that's not currently in the policy?
No.
No.
So you're looking to bring forward an amendment to the policy to bring something in there?
Yes.
Actually, with adoption of if council chooses to adopt these minutes, specifically recommendation number 29, that's what that basically says. The current policy is attached starting on page 117. So if council endorses this, you've given that direction for the policy to be amended to add a 6.10.
Right, but if I was coming to this cold and I read that, the ratio of grant request to overall organizational budget, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Right? I think there needs to be more clarity around that. I understand what's coming forward now, but what are you saying by that?
So you may wish, when you get there, to refer recommendation number 29 back to staff for further clarity or something. All I'm pointing out is if you endorse it, the policy could be changed as is.
Yes.
So you could refer it back to staff.
Yeah, to come back with more, so that whoever, I mean, you were involved in the conversation, right? So it makes sense to you, but somebody else coming to this cold wouldn't necessarily know what they were supposed to be looking at with regards to that. We might need a little more clarity in that. Okay, all right. So then, would you like to make a recommendation, Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I'd like to move recommendations 2.1 through 2.13, 2.15 to 2.18, 2.20 to 2.22, 2.24 to 2.25, and 2.27.
Okay, so, Jen, we're leaving out 2.19, 2.23, 2.26, and 2.14. Okay?
2.19? We
Yes.
didn't get that, okay.
2.14, 19, 23, and 26.
Thank you.
Okay? And we're looking to move the rest forward. And this is in recommendation number 2. So that's been moved. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded? Any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. So Councillor Toth will excuse you. All right. And would someone like to move 2.14?
I'll move 2.14.
Is there a seconder? All those in favor of 2.14? Thank you. Okay. Are you going to switch places? He went out that way, yes. Councillor McLean.
I'd like to move 2.19, 2.23, and 2.26.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, so now we need, I'll go get her. Councillor McLean.
Can I move recommendation 3?
Okay, is there a seconder for recommendation 3? Seconded? Discussion.
Could we clarify what the process would be to spend this grant? Would it simply be a motion during any meeting? Or what was the intention behind this?
Okay, we'll look to Mr. Stewart. Do you think you can? No? Recommendation 3. So this is on page 98. About the additional funds that are remaining. How would we spend them? Would a recommendation come to council?
I think we thought if there was a very straightforward last minute, oh my goodness, there's this awesome event that's coming to town that nobody knew about, kind of proposal came before us, that the committee was happy to have council spend that money, if council felt comfortable doing so.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. So then, number 4, this is with regard to the grant evaluation criteria. And I don't usually do this, but I'm going to make a motion that we refer this back to staff for a little more clarity, and then the policy as revised come back for adoption. And I'd look for a seconder. Thank you. Discussion?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this motion at all, no matter how it reads. Being a small organization is okay. I have no issue with funding a small organization. As long as they are legally registered under the Societies Act, and they put together a good proposal, I have nothing wrong with us being 100% of their funding. There are organizations who spend no money, and when they need to spend money, I want to be a place that they can come to. So I'll be voting against referring it to staff because I don't believe we should consider this at all.
Okay, and I don't see that that is actually what it's saying. And that's why I think I'm looking to staff for some clarity on that. I think they're just saying when the committee is looking at awarding these grants, that one of the things they should consider is the ratio of grant requests to their overall organizational budget. And if it is something small like that, I mean, I know for many years we've been funding well, a few of the arts things, right? That don't have a big budget, and yet they do amazing work.
Yeah.
So it's not saying we're not going to, but it's something to keep in mind. That's it, just another piece. And I get where you're coming from. Okay, any other comments? So we're just referring it to staff for a little more clarity. All those in favor? Thank you. All opposed? Would you like that recorded? Okay, please record that. And one more, okay.
So we have identified an issue of small organizations who rely upon the District of Sechelt to continue their operations. Looking through the list provided of 2017, 2018, and 2019 grants, there are several organizations that get funding every year. So we have a process for standing grants. We already award a couple standing grants. I would like to refer back to the committee to determine if any of the 2019 recipients are deserving of a standing grant. So to put that to a motion, that the council request a review of standing grants by the Community Investment Program Grant Review Committee.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded? Any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Good.
This won't change anything, but just one of the other things that started this conversation around total budget and the percentage they're asking the District of Sechelt for is there are a number of applications that come to the District of Sechelt that serve the population of the Sunshine Coast, but do not include grant applications to the SCRD or the town of Gibsons. And so part of the conversation is looking at why is that, and are we just the easiest place to get grant money from? So, and some of the applications that we received actually need some support in how they're put together. So we do have a couple of people on the committee who are going to run a session around grant writing and around doing budgets for them because we recognize that throughout the process. So that's just a couple other things that came through in the day we spent together.
Okay.
That's a really great point, Councillor Rowe. There's a large challenge in that there are no local government grants for organizations that operate coast-wide. Sechelt offers grants for organizations in Sechelt, Gibsons operates for organizations in Gibsons, and the SCRD only funds grants that operate in specific areas through the Rural Area Grant and Aid, but I don't believe off the top of my head there's anything for coast-wide. So I think this is absolutely a discussion that we should move forward with over the next year.
I have to say, a few years ago, I was actually on the committee, and we recognized that there are different funding cycles, different application processes for all four governments, and we actually met a few times to try and figure out a way to streamline it for those applying, and it was impossible. So we just kind of dropped it, so it hasn't gone anywhere. All right, any other comments? Yes?
Asking for clarity on, we didn't hear a seconder. I'm not sure if there was a seconder to Councillor McLean's. Did you? Okay,
Councillor Rowe
thank
did,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're up to council reports. So we're going to start with Councillor Scott. Sorry. Councillor Lamb will be next.
Yeah, no, it was fairly action-packed, and I managed to free up some time for it. One of the first things that we did since the last meeting is a couple of us met with some, I'll call them subject matter experts, engineering folks that had some pretty interesting ideas to help us with some short-term solutions to water while we work on the long-term solutions. And so that SCRD was there with us, and they brought forth some pretty interesting ideas and understanding of probably what caused our water shortage that I had no idea, as far as stream flow requirements that had changed in 2016. So interesting meeting. It brought forward some good ideas, and I think going forward with the SCRD, I hope to hear back and see if the province will let us adopt some of those and maybe keep us out of stage 4, which would be great. And then last week, we all had lunch with the Seashell elders, and that was quite interesting, chatting with those folks and their wisdom and craziness. Yeah, no, they were great people. I really enjoyed the people I was chatting with and sitting with, the interesting chats. And then also the Green Court announcement for the sod turning and the announcement of that funding. That was a really good event, and I'm excited to see that one move forward.
Councillor Lamb.
I attended the luncheon with the Shishland elders, and so that was on Wednesday, and then Thursday, the regional district was, we had a planning meeting in the morning, and the SCRD meeting in the afternoon, and then Friday, through the SCRD, we spent the day in Vancouver with the Squamish Nation, and they are reaching out to the communities that are close to them to see how we can work together and how we can communicate better. So it's just really I think it's a great opportunity for the community to be opening some avenues with Shishla Nation here and with Squamish Nation. So
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
So, yeah, I was at the Green Court announcement and the site blessing from the Seashell Nation. Lunch with the elders was a lot of fun. My table was some interesting characters. They were having a good time. Attended the East Porpoise Bay and Davis Bay Community Association AGMs. Both, I'm a member of the East Porpoise Bay one, but they're both groups that are very passionate about their neighborhoods and have some good ideas, and it's good to meet with them. In addition to the water roundtable that we had here with the SCRD, I guess it was the day before, we met with the salmon hatchery folks about possible options and solutions for them to reduce their reliance on the creek and ways forward possibly for them in the future. So yeah, that's basically all I have to report.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
Okay, I attended the Fuse Hub opening at Torito Square. It is a space that individuals or businesses can rent with rooms or boardrooms. Sorry, I lost my place. The spaces are available for rent monthly and or daily and are available 24 hours a day, which I thought was pretty interesting. You can go there at 2 o'clock in the morning if you need to rent an office. I think it's a great place for our community, and the idea is put together by Scredo, and I will definitely benefit our community. I also attended the luncheon with the Sechelt Nation elders. I have such respect for their culture and felt so fortunate to be invited to meet and get to know them. And I look forward to more meetings like this. And that's it.
Councillor Rowe.
Well, I have to say this is the first time that I've really felt like my day job has gotten in the way of some opportunities that I've missed in the last 2 weeks, because this community in 5 years will have a large spike in their kindergarten population. So I've been kept very busy at work and I cannot get out of the operating room. However, I did go to the workforce housing launch that was a week or so ago, and that is a new committee that's born out of volunteers from Community Futures and SCACL and 3 or 4 other great organizations on the coast that are going to look specifically at workforce housing. As a very dynamic group, very well put together evening of information. The purpose of their evening was to raise $50,000 to do some architectural drawings and some consultant work. They had $30,000 going in. I understand they've reached their target. They were really reaching out to businesses to get involved and support financially, because there are many businesses that are having trouble recruiting and then retaining staff really in relation to housing opportunities. So you'll be hearing lots more from them. Anybody can make a donation, not just businesses. I made a donation myself because I continually work short at work. So this issue matters deeply to us in the hospital. So that was a great event. Also went to the skate club event that they put on with Patrick Chan. That was a great night we have some amazing skaters on the coast. It was great. I went to the Davis Bay Community Association meeting, and it was good to hear what's going on in their neck of the woods as well. And then about an hour or so ago, I met with my council mates here, and we recreated Abbey Road. Oh shoot, on our new crosswalk. Can you hear the Beatles music now? So that was a nice way to end the sunny day. So that's it for this week. Thanks.
Councillor McLean.
Okay, so I get to go last, so most of my events have been spoken about already. But I do really want to thank the Sechelt Nation elders for welcoming us into their space. Outstanding conversations. Councillor Toss spoke about the Salmon Enhancement Society meeting, and we're going to be working with them on water conservation initiatives, because quite frankly, we use a lot of water. And looking at how much it has rained in the past month, I am worried about stage 4 water restrictions hitting us again this summer. So looking to do something to really promote water conservation to help with the water situation this year. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet with the Capilano University Board of Governors. For the first time in at least 5 years, Capilano University had a Board of Governors meeting here at the Kalahai campus, which is the Sunshine Coast campus of Capilano University. So it's really great to see an honest and true interest from Capilano University in the Sunshine Coast campus. And speaking to the Board of Governors in that room, I feel like it is honest. They do want to listen to community concerns, and they also want to listen to what the students here want out of their education. So I'm feeling really hopeful and looking forward to continuing discussions about the future of this campus in our community. I also had the opportunity to do a Kuros blanket ceremony. This is a really interesting event in dealing with reconciliation. It really puts your feet into the shoes of the oppression that's First Nations have faced over the last 600 years. And I don't know, I want to recommend it to every single person listening to this. It's an outstanding activity, and it happens regularly on the Sunshine Coast, so I'd encourage everyone to try it out. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys have mentioned a lot of things, so I'll mention them, but I won't go into detail. I'll start with one you didn't mention, Partners in Learning. The School District 46 each year recognizes the partners, the organizations and groups that they partner with on the Sunshine Coast and what they bring to enhance the educational opportunities for children in schools. So each year they pick 5 or 6 and showcase them. So that happened recently. It was followed by the workforce housing session, which Councillor Rowe mentioned. I also went to Iced Tea on the over in Parksville. Courtney, Parksville was another time. In Courtney, they have money that they're giving away for economic development. What I'm learning over there is what some of the opportunities are that could be available for us here. While the information that's presented actually has to be kept confidential, like who applied and what they applied for, we can actually take the processes that they used and use them here. So we've got some examples of things that are available to us for funding over here. And then to follow up on Councillor Rowe's comment about the babies being born, I attended the early years fair. Kids everywhere, right? Kids everywhere running around. Probably the highlight for me was the fire department. There's a firefighter who I guess has been going to this fair ever since it's been put on, and he has scaled down versions of their equipment. So little helmets, right, and little wrenches and hoses and whatever, and he's down on the floor playing with these kids and having them hook things up and put these, it's a lot of fun. So it was good to see him. Fuse Workforce Hub, you mentioned. The CAO and I and Councillor Scott went into Vancouver and met with a staff member from EMBC and one from Municipal Affairs and Housing with regards to Sea-Watch. Gave them some things to go away with, and we have some other steps to take as well, following up on that. I was the keynote speaker at the East Porpoise Bay Community Association, and as a couple of the other councillors indicated, they came along there. I also attended the Davis Bay AGM, and then I attended the inaugural meeting of this new Advisory Planning Commission. So new members came forward, and I have to commend our Director of Planning. She did a presentation to them on the process of planning, and it was fascinating. So we're actually going to be, she'd indicated that she'd put it together initially for council, so we're actually going to be presenting it to council at a workshop next week. One of the members of the commission said that he'd been on for a year now, I guess, or maybe even longer, and he said that he learned stuff in that presentation that would have been very helpful to him at the beginning, and he really sees how it's beneficial to have that information going forward. So thank you for that. I want to mention the Capilano University session as well. Capilano University will be doing a visioning session on the Sunshine Coast. I had a conversation with the outgoing chair of the Board of Governors, and he said that with the president, Paul Dangerfield, who's come on board, they've seen a complete transformation in the direction that the university is going. That they've actually taken on doing additional courses, have all kinds of ideas moving forward. He said the longest serving, I guess, not the oldest, the longest serving member of the senior team has only been there for 3 years. Everybody else has been less than that. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of great ideas. The Squamish campus, I guess, has been closed for a while. They're actually looking at resurrecting that. So he said when they come up to the Sunshine Coast, and they are going to come up here and do a session with us here, we're to bring together people from different industries, different, like Vancouver Coastal Health, the Chamber, Forestry, whatever, anybody, to come forward with any kinds of courses that they could potentially put together and offer here, along with doing things like different delivery models. So they are looking at having the maybe smaller classes here, but an instructor in Vancouver, looking at how they can do those kinds of things. So that's all up in the air. So it's exciting to see. They also, the chair also said, when they come up here, talk to them about redeveloping that site. So we're going to talk to them about that, potentially adding some floors on for student housing. So it's another conversation. So I think that's pretty much it for the council report. I'm going to talk about the SCRD for a minute. Not a lot has happened in the SCRD as a board. We did do a session on director profiles, which I found was fascinating. We were looking at how we deal with conflict. And so we had to look at how we deal with risk, how comfortable we are with the risk, how we deal with competitiveness, cooperation. And we actually, as we scored ourselves, she actually had us stand and line up from lowest to highest. So it was quite interesting to see where everybody else showed up on the spectrum. So we get to work with that going forward. Councillor Lamb mentioned Squamish. I also want to mention, we had a planning and community development committee meeting there. And there was a development, most of it, the stuff that, actually almost everything that came forward was not anything to do with the district of Sechelt. But there was an interesting zoning proposal that came forward that is going to be going out for public information, public input. And they're calling it a dynamic zone. So it's looking at creating half-acre lots. And on those lots, they could potentially have 2 houses, but also have farming and have more than one business. In the regional district right now, if you are looking to have a home-based business, you're allowed to have 1 per property. But on the Sunshine Coast, we typically have people who need to have more than 1 in order to make an income, right? They do a number of different things in one place. So they're looking at how do they bring all of this together, as well as allow agriculture and, you know, an additional dwelling, etc. So it's combining a couple of different zones, and they're going to be taking it out to the public for input. So I noticed our director taking notes over there. I think it'll be an interesting conversation up and down the coast. So that's my report from the SCRD. So next on our agenda is council correspondence for receipt. So first of all, a motion to receive. Moved and seconded, all in favor? And did anybody want to draw attention to any of the items? You'll note that the last one, number 3, has already been forwarded to Director of Planning and Development. The one letter in here is from our MP, Pamela Goldsmith-Jones, and she said that their federal lands could potentially be available to be turned over to municipalities. So we're looking to see if there is any federal land. Gibson's recently did this, where they took the RCMP station from the federal government, basically gifted it to the town of Gibson's, and they're turning it into supportive housing. So I don't know if we have any, but we're looking into that. Is anybody interested in taking on the Survivor Climate Challenge that the District of Highlands is proposing? We could revisit that at another time. All right, are there any emergency items to be brought forward? Nothing? Motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. And then questions from